Hey, it's Andrew Morgan, host of the Nomcast, the Netflix original movie podcast. Each week, we review the biggest Netflix original movies with special guests from the film industry, the music industry, comedians, and of course, our fellow podcasters. Check us out on the web at nomcastpod.com. Follow us on the socials at nomcastpod, and most importantly, listen and subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. Hit that beat one time.
Forgotten Cinema is getting romantic for our 8th season and just in time for Valentine's Day as we cover the 90s ensemble drama, Beautiful Girls.
We'll then do a complete 180 as we dive into some spy films, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Spy Game.
We'll find out why White Men Can't Jump and whether you should shoot to kill while enjoying a Frankenweenie. Nope, that doesn't make any sense.
You know what else doesn't make sense? This season will also feature our 100th episode of Forgotten Cinema.
Feels like 100 years.
Don't I know it?
Forgotten Cinema. Never stop, never stopping. Yes, that's a hint. Part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. Hi, I'm Mike Field.
And I'm Pat Whalen.
Pat is a lifelong comic book geek.
And Mike is a filmmaker and storyteller. So naturally, a bulk of our conversations surround the world of the Marvel movies. Some consider the MCU one of the greatest achievements in modern-day filmmaking, and others just think they're comic book movies. Each episode will tackle one film and discuss the differences between the comic book and what's on screen. We'll explore the growth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from its inception to present day and beyond, and have a little fun along the way. You may not have asked for it. You certainly don't need it, but you'll be happy we're here. We think. This is yet another MCU podcast.
Pat, you ready for Captain Marvel?
Oh man, I get knocked down and I get up again and I'm never gonna get me down. I get knocked down.
A little Chumbawamba. Nice. All right. As you know, we like to do. I am Mike and that is Pat.
Hello?
I'm pointing to him, but you can't see that, so that's a little weird. We're going to be talking about Captain Marvel today. We talk about the movie, then we talk about the difference between the movie and the comics, and then we talk about this movie within the MCU, which Pat has major problems with, apparently. Correct?
All of the problems.
Pat has all the problems. So let's get right into it. Captain Marvel was a runtime of 123 minutes, rated PG-13. Surprise. Production budget of $160 million.
There's the magic dollar number again.
In between the sweet spot.
There's the sweet spot.
We're on to you, Kevin Feige. We're on to you. Release date Friday, March 8th, 2019. Had an opening weekend of $153 million. So when you almost make your entire production budget back in the opening weekend, it's a big hit. Domestic did 426, and then worldwide did $1.1 billion. That surprised me.
Yeah. Me too.
I didn't realize it made that much money, which, good for that movie. Good job. So you have a lot of people in this that have made this movie in terms of behind the screen and on the screen that have not been in anything or not done any Marvel movies. You had 2 directors here, Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. They also have a screenplay and story credit. You had Geneva Robertson Dworet. I apologize if I said your name wrong. She's also has a screenplay and story credit, and also 2 story credits for Meg Lafave. I don't know.
I'm just having a great time today.
I know. Why do I get all the weird names and then all the hard names? I apologize, not weird names. And Nicole Perlman, which you might remember from the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
She has a story credit here.
Nice.
You also have another Guardians of the Galaxy connection with Ben Davis as a cinematographer, and then composer Pinar Toprak, and produced by, obviously, Mr. Feige. Brie Larson makes her appearance now, or makes her first appearances into the MCU, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
believe so.
She plays Carol Danvers, also known as Veers, also known as Captain Marvel. You have Sam Jackson as Nick Fury. Ben Mendelsohn is here as Talos or Keller. Jude Law as Jan Rog. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. This is his first MCU movie. Annette Bening, she's Wendy Lawson, and she's the Supreme Intelligence in terms of how Danvers sees her. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Digimon Hansu as Korath. He is also from Guardians of the Galaxy. I guess that opening scene.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't understand why they have him in both.
I'll get to it.
Okay.
Well, I'm hoping, you know what, with him, I'm just going to get right to the point. Just give him a Disney Plus show. Show us between Captain Marvel and Guardians.
I'm not
of the
really
Galaxy.
interested in his character, though, because he's always getting...
Yeah, but I'm interested in the actor.
Oh, no, I like him. I'm saying
I don't care about his character. I just want to give him the show.
He's crapped on in GOTG, as we like to call it here, by Star-Lord, and then he's kind of just...
Here.
Yeah. Anyways. Lee Pace makes his return as Ronan, which I completely forgot about. Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambeau. She is Danvers' friend in the previous life before she became Veers.
Mm-hmm.
Gemma Chan as Minerva. And Clark Gregg is Agent Coulson. Clark Gregg is back. Agent Coulson is here. He's not a robot. He's a real life person with a big high top hair.
You look so weird.
Welcome to the 90s.
Yeah, Mike, did you know that this movie took place in the 90s? Were there enough references to the 90s in this movie to make sure that you knew that it took place in the 90s?
Here's the thing. When she lands into the Blockbuster and she's inside and she's walking around, it was so familiar to me. Like I looking in there and I'm going, yeah, man, I remember. Was I at this Blockbuster? Like I remember it. And then it made me instantly sad because I felt old, but it's just like it was. Yes, everyone. That's how Blockbuster Video looked like inside. It was a nice job, but yeah, I know. Well, just the opening where the Blockbuster Video, when she steals the 9 Inch Nails.
And then all the rest of the clothing and the music.
And the music definitely.
Yeah.
But like, I don't mind it because I don't mind the 90s. So,
right,
you know,
that's true.
But I hear you. It's not as overt as maybe like sometimes Stranger Things, the Netflix show,
wants to make sure that you know
gets
you're in the 80s.
A little too much with the 80s in terms of just they have every single thing that came out. They talk about every single hot button 80s thing. Yeah. No,
I mean, they reference, you can imagine them saying, well, Alf was fighting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the cartoon to tell you to stop doing drugs because Nancy Reagan said no. Like, you can imagine that's a statement from Stranger Things.
Right. So that's a little bit more in your face with it. And listen, that's Stranger Things, if for lack of a better term, thing. And that's fine. I didn't find that as much in this one, and maybe in the beginning, but then once the action and all the stuff started kicking in, it really kind of didn't matter. Okay, we're in the 90s, but I hear you.
Fair enough.
But what's the first thing that struck you when you started watching the movie? The very first thing. Oh, right. Stanley passed away before this movie.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because they changed the Marvel logo in the credits. And
right.
stuff.
Right. Which is fine. It was just so like, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, wait. Okay. All right. Here we go. And then instantly I was like, oh.
But they've done actually the same thing for those who have watched Black Panther since Chadwick Boseman's passing. On Disney Plus, they've changed the Marvel logo.
Oh, really?
To reflect Chadwick's.
I watched it. I didn't remember that.
Oh, I don't know. Or maybe they didn't change it right away because we recorded almost immediately after, or shortly afterwards.
Okay, so you've watched it since then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll have to go back and see. I have to see if what. So they just have him.
Yeah.
In the movie or from other stuff?
From his role in as Black Panther.
Okay, so it's just basically him.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I think a few, shots with other characters.
Is it all purple and black and gold? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I should check that out. That probably looks pretty. All right, so we're not talking about that movie. We're talking about Captain Marvel. Where do you want to start? You don't like this movie.
No, it's a fine movie. It's just fine. It's fine.
My biggest it's just fine.
It's fine.
One of the things I think that in this movie, I don't hate this movie as much as Pat does. Pat does not like this movie. He don't pretend. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. It's fine. He badmouths this movie constantly. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
When we get to the connections to the MCU, you're all going to realize why I hate this movie.
That's fine. Okay. That's fair. I think what they do a good job in this movie of is setting up the mystery in the beginning. So the mystery of who Veers is. Granted, it's not really a stretch when you know her, if you know what her name is, Danvers, and you go, oh wow, Veers, and technically it should be Vers because Veers would be Veer, but that's fine. But they do set up that mystery of who am I? I don't know who I am. I do like the opening fight scene on the ship. I thought that was done well.
Yep. That was good.
Yeah.
Is Brie Larson a good actress, or did they just not give her a personality?
She won an Oscar.
Yeah, but did they not give Captain? Is it just Captain Marvel then? Who doesn't have that much of a personality? And is it the issue of her not knowing who she is for 90% of the movie that makes her a boring character?
Well, there's never really a moment in the movie where she figures out so completely who she is. They never have that moment. You kind of get the idea that eventually, oh yeah, she's figured it out. I would not lay the Captain Marvel character at her, the responsibility or the irresponsibility of the character at her feet. No, it's obviously the right. And there's 5 people that wrote this,
which is not a good sign.
Right. You can definitely tell that that's her personality in the role. But in terms of any kind of emotional connection, there's probably more with the stuff with the family, with Rimbaud and her daughter. That stuff is good.
It's great. The chemistry with Samuel Jackson is great.
Right. And there's actually even the cutscene at the end of the movie, which I found out they shot before they even shot this movie.
Yes.
And she was only brought in and they weren't even in the set together. Did you read that?
Yeah.
Like, why?
I don't know.
So
the cutscene, the teaser at the end of this movie, they filmed because it ties in with the rest of the Avengers, setting up Endgame. They filmed that before this movie, I think, was even written.
Correct.
And so there was, when she did that scene, she had no idea who the character of Carol Danvers was going to be. You could read the comics, you could figure it out, but she had no idea what the character was going to be like in the MCU, which is, I guess drives to my question too. Is it just an unfortunate circumstance that they put Brie Larson in with this character?
No, I mean, she, like I said, you don't win an Oscar because you just got lucky. Granted, I know there's some examples of people that have won Oscars and then you never hear from them again. Yeah. Marissa Savino is one of those people that pop into my mind. Even I know that Marissa Tomei won the Oscar for My Cousin Vinny, but then you never see her again in the Oscar realm. But I've seen her in enough stuff where what's the movie with Nick Stahl? Is it In the Bedroom? I think it's that one. She's fantastic in that movie.
Well, I think
you won an Oscar, you got chops.
Marissa Tomei, there was the great Comedy Central skit where it's like, oh, you've now entered, you're 31, you've now entered aunt territory.
Oh, right.
Hollywood writes you off the minute you turn 30.
Which,
so
I
think Marissa Tomei was a victim of that. Nowadays, it's not as much of an issue because of the push for equality and you have really quality actresses and everything.
Well, it's also a stupid reason why you shouldn't be able to get roles.
Absolutely stupid reason.
Pat, don't kid yourself. That stuff still goes on. Please don't kid yourself. People can say the right things all the time, and they do. There are still people in Hollywood that act with different rules. Yes. So that's just, but I hear what you're saying. No, I think she gets unfair. I'm talking about Brie Larson now. It's unfair to criticize her if you do not like the Captain Marvel character or the how she was written, the character itself. That's not Larson's fault.
Right.
But I thought she was fine. I thought she was perfectly good. My biggest thing when I watched this movie was I remember in the trailer, there was a line in the trailer that she says, and it was, I can't remember right now off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was, but the way it comes off in the trailer, it's fairly Clueless like in terms of the movie Clueless. And I didn't like it in the trailer. I was like, oh, I hate that line. Don't please. And so when we watched the movie, they cut the line out.
Oh, okay.
And I was so happy about that because I thought that line made me I didn't want to see the movie. But when the line was cut out, I remember saying, whoever I was with, I was like, oh, okay, thank God they took out that line because I wasn't a favorite. I didn't like that line. And they probably recognized that as well. But in the story itself, so here's the thing again, that we always have an issue with Marvel movies. Who is the villain?
The Supreme Intelligence,
I guess.
Maybe
Yeah.
Yearned is the kind of henchman. I don't know.
Well,
Lee Pace shows up and he's about to bomb Earth.
Right.
Like who?
Lee Pace shows up for comic relief.
Yeah, which is not who the character was 20 years from now, in the Marvel timeline.
So Ronan shows up just to be a threat so that Captain Marvel you can see Captain Marvel's full power, and then he cracks a line and they leave.
Right.
And it's like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Yeah, Yearned and the Supreme Intelligence real goal is to keep her in the dark because they want to keep fighting a war that we never see.
Limit her power so that they could keep fighting this war but use her in the war instead of unleashing her power and using it in the war.
Yeah.
And they call her. I mean, that gets called out in the movie too. But yeah, is it her overcoming? Is it just is the villain, the antagonist, her overcoming her challenges to become who she's supposed to be? Is that what it is?
Well, the mystery of the movie is her discovering who she really is.
Right. And then but she realizes she's Carol Danvers 50 minutes into the movie.
Right. And then it becomes, and then they have the whole thing where she's fighting after the Skrulls, right?
Yeah.
Then the Skrulls show up and be like, hey, I'm drinking my milkshake here, but just chill out because, you really need to know the true story of who we are and what we are.
Which, this is another part. I did not. I mean, first of all, the Skrulls being these refugees wasn't compelling at all to me. And it felt tacked on for the political climate that we were in. It was a political shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. At the Trump administration.
Let's be honest, there was only 10 of them. There's no other Skrulls in the world. There's only 10.
I don't know.
Yeah. And Yearned's crew that he's with, none of them, they all are lockstep. Once they see the Skrulls and their kids and see they're not warriors, they're all lockstep and let's get rid of these scum. Nobody is like, hang on, guys. No one says anything. Like Minerva is such, I'm a villain and that's it. I don't care. Like
she looked like a character from like Fortnite or Overwatch or something. Yeah, I didn't like this movie.
Let's start at the beginning because let's go back to the beginning.
Let's go back.
I didn't understand what their mission was in the beginning of the movie. They were going to meet one of their contacts or one of their soldiers.
They were going to meet an undercover agent and they were going to extract him from the Skrull planet. And he was supposed to have some information for them related to Skrull movements.
And the fact that he had the code, he knew the special code in order for them to know it was him, but it was really a Skrull. Who were we supposed to, I don't forget who told him the code. Like, do they ever go into that? Like somebody is obviously a mole, right?
Right.
And who is that?
I don't know.
Because Jan-Rog is...
I can't tell if Jan-Rog was using them.
Well, I'm a little confused at like, maybe we'll get into this in the MCU, but knowing what I know from Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm a little confused as to the good guy, bad guys, what's going on, how far are we from that? Why are they now fighting? Why are they now friends? I don't understand what's happening.
So the Crees and the Skrulls have always fought each other. The Crees being the blue-skinned aliens, the Skrulls, this greenish...
The shapeshifters.
The shapeshifters. There's the Crees, but then you have Ronan's subsection of the Crees, which are these like these radicalists, these terrorists essentially operating as Crees, but really, trying to inflict their control on the galaxy. And that's Lee Pace's character that we meet in Guardians, where he's become entirely radicalized.
I noticed that because he doesn't have the blood or the
so
black
in this
makeup
he's
on.
still like I think he's still working with the rest of the Cree Empire.
Are we assuming that he's not working with Thanos at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. That's all
That's
you
it.
got.
Yes.
So what's the
There's a yes or no question.
what's the name of the planet that Glenn Close is on in Guardians?
Nova Prime.
And those are who?
Those are the Nova Corps. They're like the
Okay.
galaxy policemen.
Okay, I'm confused. Okay, then that was what I was confusing with. All right, so it's a little confusing in the beginning. She lands on Earth, and you meet young Nick Fury, young Agent Coulson. What do you think of the de-aging?
Made me just want to watch The Negotiator.
You know what? That's an episode of Forgotten Cinema.
I knew that. I'm trying to
Nice,
plug that. But I
nice.
love The Negotiator.
His hair, I don't know why his hair is colored in that movie. His hair's red in The Negotiator.
Yes,
It
but in
looks
this
terrible.
movie, the rest of him looks as young as he did in The Negotiator. So I thought it was a really well done job that they did.
One of my complaints all the time about de-aging, and I say this on the other podcast, is that you can de-age faces, but you can't de-age walks.
Mhm.
You can't de-age the age out of somebody, how they look in terms of running and walking. But I will say this, Sam Jackson does a fine job hiding it. Like
He's
can
in
do-
shape too.
He ages well. Let's put it like I would
De-ages well.
He de-ages well too. Obviously that's not him all the time doing the action, but he's running enough where I'm just like, that doesn't look like a 70-year-old
Right.
man or 60-year-old. I don't know how old he is.
He's 70. He's in his 70s.
He's in his late 60s, early 70s, something like that. No, I was impressed with that. It's cool having him in there,
Yes.
but I would have been okay with a young actor playing Fury. I would have
Yeah.
been okay with that. I think you want to open it up to another audience, and I know if you want to have Jackson in there bookending it in terms of like, I remember back in the
Yeah.
day, like something like that. I mean, but I would have been okay with that. We've had the same conversation about Ant-Man and the Wasp,
Yep.
where I would have been okay if they,
Not de-aged,
but had Bill Foster
had,
be a younger
or
character.
had Bill Foster too. Yeah. had Michael Douglas
I'm
and-
really okay with that.
Yeah.
But it's fine either
He
way.
played a good, and they had really good. I said this before that they have really good chemistry in this movie. I think Sam Jackson
Yes.
has really good chemistry with everybody.
It's almost like a buddy cop movie.
Yes,
Well, Sam Jackson's a good actor.
he is.
So he knows you can probably, Sam Jackson is one of those actors that you can put him in a bad movie, but he will be good in it
Yeah.
because he knows how to attack a character. He knows what to do, and he knows he knows the character to play.
Where do you get stuck in the story again, or what?
Well, I think there's decent action. I think when she's chasing the Skrull on the train, and
That was
you get,
good.
Then you get
Yes,
the Stan
that
Lee
was really
cameo,
good.
which I like that Stan Lee cameo for a couple of reasons. One, I like Mallrats.
This is actually one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos as well.
But did you read that? That's not him doing the voice. They took this is again just not to bring everyone down. So when Stan Lee was on the set, he was in declining health at this point. So he's there, but they took his dialogue from Mallrats that he's saying that line, and they just dubbed it repeating over and over like he was practicing his line. He's not saying anything. That's
okay.
from Mallrats, which that made me sad too. But
It did, but
that I like that cameo because I remember Mallrats. I remember
Yeah.
seeing Mallrats, and I enjoyed Mallrats. So yeah, no, that was fine. But that whole action scene's good when she beats the crap out of the old lady.
that is fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts in that scene is when he changes to that dude and he jumps up, and the guy that he changes to, he like lifts up. It's like, what the? Yeah. Like that stuff was good. So I didn't mind that. The action was fine. I enjoyed that.
Action throughout most of the movie is really good. Like you said, the bridge fight is good.
Yeah.
The scene on the train, even the one when they're in the ship at the end is
Yeah.
really good. Good fight scenes.
Yeah.
Overall.
It's when she gets her main powers, I think that's when, not that I lose interest, but it's okay.
I'm going to get to that when we get to the MCU connections, because I got some takes on that too.
Got some hot takes.
At this point, they might be cold.
When they go into the Pegasus and they go to see Project Pegasus, which is what we remember from Captain America, the first one? No, from the first Avengers.
For the first Avengers.
When they go into Pegasus, did you get a War Games vibe? Was that the same place that they shot War Games?
I believe so.
Okay. For those who don't know what War Games is, check it out. It's an 80s film starring Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy. It's really good. So what's a flurgan?
It's the cat.
Yeah,
it's an alien that looks like a cat.
Is that thing they make this up for the movie?
No, they make this up. It's in the comics.
We'll get to that. What else did you...
No, I'll tell you what I liked.
Tell me what you liked.
I really liked when we finally figure out... I liked Annette Bening's character a lot in this movie, both as Dr. Wendy Lawson, but also when she becomes like when Carol Danvers, finally figures out who she is, and she's captured at the end of the movie.
Oh, when she's in with the Supreme Intelligence.
When she's in with the
I didn't realize which is a mobile unit. You can actually just have Supreme Intelligence wherever you're going. Yeah, I thought you had to actually here's my.
It's
thing.
coming to the PlayStation 5 next year.
In the beginning of the movie, she is. I have to go see the Supreme Intelligence. She has to make this bit. She's taking this trip. She walks up these giant stairs. She goes into this giant room, and she's there for the Supreme Intelligence. But at the end, it's just like, oh, let's just hook you up. She's right here.
Right.
Here's some string. What is the difference here?
I don't know.
So go ahead.
When we finally realize the Supreme Intelligence is on the wrong side, and we know who Carol is and everything,
you should have known that.
We should have known that. But like when it's finally revealed within the story, Annette Bening just chews up that scenery like great. And it is a fantastic performance.
She also stands weird in this movie. She every time you see her, she's got her foot forward and she's all like she's taking some kind of pose, like she's going to attack. It's a weird. Whatever. It's fine. I love Annette Bening.
Her when she just really went all for it at the end there, and I love that. Yeah. I like that scene a lot.
Okay, that's it.
A fun fact for you. Stanley's cameo isn't the only cameo by a comic book writer in this movie.
Oh, come on, nerd. What is it?
Kelly Sue DeConnick, who helped revive the character and moved her from being Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel in around.
She's on the train.
She's right after the train scene. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So keep an eye out for her. She's actually married to Matt Fraction, friend of the program, who we've referenced.
Friend of the program, without knowing it.
He doesn't know it, but I like to think we're friends. He's written a lot of the Hawkeye series and some Thor books that we've referenced and recommended in the past. So
right.
I also you pointed to the time on like the Louisiana farm there.
Yes,
I really really liked Maria and Monica.
Yeah,
and I would have just liked the movie with the two of them.
Although, well, I know that Monica becomes.
She's going to become a character in WandaVision.
Oh, is she? Yeah. Well, how does Monica know how to use the color pad on Captain Marvel's suit? Technology she's never seen before. How does she know how to do that, Pat? Yeah, exactly.
So I was going to, forgetting that it takes place in the 90s. She's probably born with a tablet in her hands, but then it takes place in the 90s, so I have no idea.
Yep. That's fine, though.
Yeah.
It's a movie. I understand.
Well, Carol showed her first, and then I think she did her thing.
She was like putting her finger around.
She just swiped a circle, a holographic circle on there, and then the girl just knew how to swipe.
One of the things I did not like is the when Minerva. I don't like the Minerva character because she's so just one note angry jerk, and she's like C-53 is a real. Oh, I know. I'm just. She says a bad word. C-53 is a real, you know what, and it's just like, oh yeah, right. It's so crappy. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, we get it. I love in movies when the joke is that Earth sucks. I just love it. I love it's like Earth blood. It's filthy. It's disgusting. Yeah. It's terrible. It's like you gotta. That says a lot about the writer.
Right. You're right. How many times do we need to see that trope?
Yeah, exactly. That, Earth ain't perfect, but where else are you going?
Right. The moon got nobody. The rest of the 9, 8 to 9 planets in our solar system.
If you watch The Expanse like I do, then you can go to the belt if you'd like, or you can go to Mars. But they're fighting right now, so you really probably can't do that. So. Yeah, that's right. Nerd out. All right. So if you don't got nothing else to crap on in this movie, Pat, why don't we move on to the differences between this movie and the comic? I guess right off the bat, because this is the first time we've done this character, I would assume, why don't you introduce the character in terms of how she is introduced within the comic world, as you like to do?
First of all, I want to actually acknowledge that this is a very good adaptation of the character. Similar to what we saw with Black Panther, they took a lot of the things from Carol's core storyline and a couple other characters' core storyline and just updated it, tied things together as best they could. Carol Danvers first appeared in Marvel Superheroes number 13 in 1968, created by Roy Thomas and Gene Cologne. We've seen Roy and Jean in a number of books that we've recommended in the past. Carol is a security chief at an Air Force base. Again, it's the 60s, so she can't really fly.
I noticed. Yeah, I know that in the movie, or they did backgrounds about whether she would be a pilot.
Yeah.
In the 90s. So yeah, they said yes.
Yeah, and she is, and they acknowledge the fact that it's hard coming up in the 90s, to be a pilot, and so they had to take whatever practice flights they could get her and Maria. Carol meets Dr. Walter Lawson. They gender swap it in this movie. Lawson is the alias of the Cree hero Captain Marvel, aka Marvel. He was created by Stan Lee and Gene Coulon in the issue prior, so Marvel Superheroes number 12. He initially wears the white green when he's in his superhero mode. He wears the white green armor of the Cree soldiers, so it's kind of similar to what we see with like Jude Law's gang, but it's a lot more white instead of that blue blackish.
In the comic, is that supposed to be the antithesis of DC's Green Lantern?
It's a lot of I wouldn't call it the antithesis, but a lot of these guys are stealing.
That's what I'm saying.
Sci-fi. Yeah. So in the 60s in comic books, they really hit on the sci-fi pieces. We were going to the moon. Kennedy was talking about the new frontier, and you got a lot of these sci-fi writers coming in. So DC had Jules Schwartz, who was an editor who took on the Green Lantern books and the Flash books. So really just trying to tie in a lot of space and space opera storylines. And so likewise, what's selling for one book is going to sell for another. So Marvel was really kind of pushing a lot of the sci-fi stuff. And they were the ones that I would even say introduced some of the sci-fi aspect in the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. They were both sides were pushing for more space stories. And so you got a lot of push, whether it's the Legion of Superheroes in DC, the Kree Skrull fight in Marvel. I don't know if I'd call it antithesis, but it's certainly, they self-reference everyone all the time, constantly in comic books. So a little bit on Marvel, Walter Lawson's character. He eventually joins the Avengers for a bit. He heads up into space. He kind of does his own thing. 9 years after her introduction is when Carol Danvers is introduced as Miss Marvel. And so she gains her powers from an accident. She gets amnesia. There was a real big push in comics at the time to empower more female superheroes, create more female superheroes. So they took this character that had been introduced kind of as like a throwaway. She was a little bit of a love interest for Marvel for a little bit, and they gave her powers. She's in this accident that's caused by Yanrog, and she gains her powers. So she becomes a member of the Avengers. And so for a long time, she was, one of Marvel's top female superheroes. But Marvel didn't really know what to do with her for a long time. She was just there. She was hanging about. There was a lot of reintroductions and everything. But, it's outside from the X-Men, the Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, Wasp. There was Miss Marvel, who also went by Warbird and a handful of other names just to, be interesting.
So this Captain Marvel is not Miss Marvel?
This Captain Marvel is Miss Marvel.
Okay. The same Miss Marvel that we talked about in Civil War that beats the crap out of people? Was that?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
That's the same character.
It's the same character.
Okay.
So in 2012, she is Kelly Sue DeConnick, who we touched on before. She takes over the book and she promotes Carol Danvers to Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And so she grew huge in popularity. It was a peak 2012 series where there was a lot of self-referentialism. There's a lot of fun, a lot of sarcasm. It was shortly after Hawkeye had been reinvented in a similar fashion. So Kelly Sue was able to take this kind of stale character and really revision her to 2012 to empower her. And it was perfect because it was we're seeing a lot of that stuff in the news as well. And so fans flocked to it. And you got a lot of fans who called themselves the Carol Corps.
What? Fans of the comic?
Fans of the comic.
Okay.
And then there were characters in the comics who referenced those fans. So one was Catherine Renner, who is referred to by Carol as Lieutenant Trouble, and wears a similar shirt that Monica Rambeau wears in this movie. So it's, the fandom is building outside the comic, but it's actually building within the comic as well.
Okay.
Let me just make one thing very clear about the character.
Okay.
Nobody really likes her, Carol Danvers.
You mean, what do you mean? People who read it?
In the comics.
Is it, hold on, men? Is this men who don't like her?
She's not written well either a lot of times outside the Kelly Sue run. So she starts this whole thing called Civil War 2, which is essentially a rip on Minority Report.
Okay.
There's a character who has precog abilities, can predict when things are going to happen. Carol wants to use this and stop things from happening, and it goes a little too far. And so Captain America, in trying to come up with something nice to say about Carol, says, well, she's not Satan.
All right. Well, so she's more terrestrial in this movie than she is other off-world.
No, she's very terrestrial.
She's more Earth-based.
She's very terrestrial in the comics.
Not the movie. She's more Earth-based in the comic. Okay.
Yep.
But she's not as powerful.
No, nowhere near as powerful. I think we touched on it in the Infinity War one.
Right.
Where she tries to fight Thanos, and Thanos, without the stones, throws her through a mountain. That's Carol Danvers. She's had a mix of a history. I think if we could move, as comic writers can move past that Civil War II nonsense, which just was not well received, and maybe give her a fresh take on the character again, in relation to how they're using her in the films, it might help a lot.
Do you prefer how she is in the comic in terms of Earth-based, or do you prefer how she is in the movies, where she's more in space? Because she's not. I know she's an Earthling.
She's an Earthling,
but she's not.
She's not really, and then she disappears
Earth,
for at least 25 years. Again, in the comics, it is mostly for most of her history, she's Earth-based. They made her a little bit more extraterrestrial based, which is nice to see. And there was the series, it's called Infinity, which we touched on in the Infinity War episode. It's about a space invasion, and she is part of that group that's out in space all the time. So I think more of that would help her, and maybe just kind of separating her from the kitschy little in-universe fans.
Okay. There's a lot of stuff that confuses me with Captain Marvel in terms of Marvel, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel that's with DC. It's Shazam, like all this stuff confuses the heck out of me.
Okay.
So maybe we'll go through it all, and I'll bring them up, and you could your explanations will probably not help, but
no, I'll try. I'll do my best.
So
I want to. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah,
to
you can do whatever you want.
Piece? So after Carol became Captain Marvel, there was another character called Kamala Khan who became Miss Marvel. She gained power. She was a fan of Captain Marvel, so she became her own superhero. We're going to get a Disney Plus series on her.
But she has nothing to do with Captain Marvel. She just named herself after her.
Yeah, Captain Marvel was her idol, or like Miss Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel was Kamala's idol.
Okay.
But there's no like Cree or Skrull or anything, related to Kamala. She just gained some extra powers.
She doesn't gain the same powers as Captain Marvel?
No, she gained shape-shifting powers. So a little
Skrull power.
More shape-shifting like Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four.
Okay. What about Monica Rambeau? My note is that she gets superpowers in the comics and she becomes Photon or also Pulsar, Spectrum, like the internet, and Captain Marvel again. What is this?
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on here.
So Monica Rambeau, she is the daughter of Maria. Maria doesn't have a lot of page time in the comics. So it was a nice addition in here, but nothing big. So she gets her powers in a similar way to Carol. She gets caught in an energy blast from the explosion of an interdimensional weapon. So very similar to both Carol in the comics and Carol in the movies.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. Always happening. I have to do my best to avoid that. So she joins the Avengers as she's learning to work with her powers. And so Captain America and the Wasp begin to train her. The press and public actually call her Captain Marvel. And there's an out of comic reason for that too. And we're going to get to that when we talk about the differences with DC. And so the Thing from the Fantastic Four says, yeah, well, there was a Captain Marvel, but he's not going to care if you use it. So do what you got to do.
Okay.
And so Monica Rambeau becomes the first female African-American member in the Avengers. And she, is just a member of the team. She has energy manipulation powers. She can travel in she turns into like a ball of energy basically and can travel through space. She eventually becomes the leader of the Avengers. She's on it for so long. People, there's turnover. And she works her way up.
So much turnover in the Avengers.
There's a lot of turnover.
I mean, like people quit or people die?
Both.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We never talked about this, but in the comics, how do you become a member of the Avengers? Do you just show up and say, like, I got powers, can I join the team? Or do you have to fill out an application? Do you have to get vetted? Like, how do you join the Avengers?
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
It's you show up, so Monica showed up and was like, I have these powers, I don't know what to do with it. So she became an auxiliary member, essentially, to begin with.
Okay.
And Captain America and Wasp began to train her. Once they figured, okay, you know how to use your powers, you're on the team.
Okay.
So she was vouched for by Captain America Wasp.
I feel like the X-Men have it down a little bit better. There's a school, they learn things, then they develop their. But I feel like the X-Men have that set up a little bit better than the Avengers. Just seems like, hey man, I can blast things out of my eyes. Can I join up? Oh, what's up?
Yeah. And then there's a hierarchy on the team. So like if you're like, oh, I could just do this. What up?
Yeah.
You're like, all right, you're in the back, but you're on the team.
Yeah. All right, talk about Captain Marvel, Shazam, Captain Marvel.
Oh
DC.
yeah, I was gonna touch on Monica's different names.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. I'm skipping ahead.
So eventually she actually lost her powers for a very short time. When she got them back and she returned to superheroics, she began calling herself Photon because the son of the original Marvel, Captain Marvel, wanted to use the name, and she said, okay, you could have it. Here's Captain Marvel, whatever.
They really dedicate pages in the comics to these conversations. I really want this name. Okay, fine. You can
Mike,
pick this name.
There's an issue every month.
Man, that would bore me. That was three pages of deciding a name.
You got to fill pages. so she picks Photon. Eventually, that same character, the Marvel's son, who had previously called himself Captain Marvel, decided to use the name Photon.
Oh, for God's
So then she's like, okay, you could use it. I'll be Pulsar or Spectrum or one of the two. I forget the order of them.
I'll be Optimum.
I'll be Frontier. This is a recommended reading that we're not going to give at the end, but she becomes a member of Next Wave, which they're agents of HATE, another organization which stands for Highest Anti-Terrorism Effort.
Excellent. That's somebody made that up in a room. I need acronyms. Go.
You got no love for this.
I just go ahead.
No. There's I can't remember what the name of it is, but there's a new one. If anybody's reading the series Champions, which stars Nova, Vision, Miles Morales, Miss Marvel, Cradle. There's an organization called Cradle, which is about the registration of young superheroes. I cannot remember what it stands for, but again, somebody's like in a room saying it needs to be Cradle. Come up with words that tie into that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So what else you want to know?
Shazam. I want to know about DC's Captain Marvel.
So yes, oddly enough, these movies came out right around the same time. The Shazam movie and the Captain Marvel.
I know
movie.
I've said this before. I think on the podcast. I actually really like Shazam.
Shazam is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a fun movie.
Yeah, it is. Zachary Levi. I loved him since Chuck.
I know. I don't like Chuck, but
which is weird because you like references.
I like him. No, because that's why. Because I don't like something that is overly referential. Like when and I also don't like something when people keep telling me it's awesome. People keep telling me it's awesome, and they build it up, and then I watch a couple episodes and I'm like, it's fine.
Okay,
but it's fine. I'm not hating on Chuck. I just didn't get into it.
Yeah,
but I do like him. He's really good in Mrs. Maisel.
Yes,
he's really good in that, and he's good in Shazam. But go ahead.
Yeah. So the character Shazam, aka Captain Marvel, he's the character with the big red costume, the lightning bolt on his chest. He was created by Fawcett Comics in 1940. So he's actually one of the oldest superheroes.
He predates Captain Marvel.
He predates Captain Marvel.
Marvel's
predates the Marvel Captain Marvel.
Okay. Yep. On Marvel.
So another thing to notice is at the time, once Superman came out, comic books were flying off the shelf. So every single publisher out there and more publishers popped up. They started just publishing superheroes. So DC, National Comics was DC Comics, Fawcett Comics, EC Comics, Timely Comics, which became Marvel Comics, anything that you could think of, they were just publishing superheroes. So he was the captain, the Fawcett Comics, which would become the DC Comics, Captain Marvel, was a huge ripoff of Superman. Okay. Absolutely a ripoff. Big guy, big chest, big logo on his chest. The cover in the original artwork was extremely similar to Action Comics #1. DC sued them over it for copyright infringement. And it was in court for a very long time. Eventually, it got settled out of court with the presiding judge. The original presiding judge agreed that Fawcett copyrighted Superman. There were a couple legal loopholes when Superman used the writers of Superman used different things that helped Fawcett so that, they didn't have to essentially pay DC anything. But what they did was Fawcett ceased publication of their Captain Marvel. Flash forward into the 60s, character named Captain Marvel was out of publication for about 15 years. And so Stan Lee, who was at Timely, Atlas, and now Marvel Comics, was like, well, let's make a character with our name in it. So he developed Marvel, Walter Lawson, and made him Captain Marvel. And he thought, oh, this is clever. We had a superhero with our publisher's name in it. This is perfect. DC in the 1970s acquired Fawcett Comics. So they acquired all their back catalog of characters, including the Shazam Captain Marvel character. And so when they brought him back, they couldn't title the series Captain Marvel because Marvel was currently publishing their own series called Captain Marvel. And so Marvel, in order to continue, holding on to this, had to keep publishing a Captain Marvel series, which is why once Marvel moves on and isn't really a focus anymore, Monica Rambeau becomes Captain Marvel. So they're constantly refreshing the identity of the character so they could keep publishing them. DC, being who they are, published a series called Shazam, the original Captain Marvel.
Nice.
Which they had to remove and say Shazam, the world's mightiest mortal. That's how Marvel kept publishing. Marvel kept publishing to retain the trademark.
Mm-hmm.
And so DC can't publish a book that has Captain Marvel in the title.
Until Marvel ends their run?
I don't think it's allowed anymore because I think there might have been some pauses in there, but I think it's so tied in with Marvel now that DC just can't do it.
Okay. The Supergirl, her name in the comics is Kara Danvers.
Yes.
Is that on purpose?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's completely a coincidence. So one of the many Supergirls in the comics is Kara Danvers, and obviously we have Carol Danvers. As far as anybody can tell, and I tried to do as much research on this one as I could, just a coincidence. So Kara, Supergirl, was created in the late 50s, and she assumed the identity. So her name is Kara Zor-El. She assumed the identity, the last name of her adopted family.
Okay.
So Danvers, similar to Clark Kent. Carol was created in the late 60s, as we talked about, and really wasn't intended to be much of anything until they did stuff with the character in the 70s. So it just was a weird coincidence that nobody was trying to do it, just circumstances of the characters they wanted to build on.
Right. Okay. The Mohawk.
Yep.
The helmet of Captain Marvel. I know that you see it a couple times in the movie, but the nod to the comic, I know that is the look from the comic, and I don't know how I know it. It must have seen it somewhere. I guess, I don't know. Do you like that? I mean,
yeah, it's fine because she ends up wearing in this movie, throughout the whole movie, she ends up wearing the suit that she wore in the Kelly Sue DeConnick run. So the new, the kind of flight suit looking thing, and she puts the helmet on. I'm cool with it. I think it's a better pick than the bathing suit looking one that she had worn for 20 years.
So in the comic, her hair is always short, which is probably why it's short in Endgame.
Initially, her hair was long. So when she was Miss Marvel, her hair was long. And so but in Endgame, she has that short haircut.
Okay, I didn't know. That was
same thing in the comics.
Okay.
She wears the short haircut a lot.
Do you want to talk about the Skrulls?
A little bit. We could touch on them.
I guess I have my note here is that they make their debut in the Fantastic Four comics. We might have talked about this.
I think we
right?
talked about it a little bit. Yeah. So they make their debut in Fantastic Four, number 2, created by Stan and Jack. They're the villains, and so I think that's why this movie was hard to take for a lot of fans. Is the Skrulls are villains, and they're always the bad guys. There's a handful of sympathetic ones here and there, but for the most part, they're the bad guys. Again, Talos. I don't know why they did it in this movie, but he couldn't shapeshift.
I saw that. Yeah.
So he was kind of ostracized from the rest of the Skrull, his peers.
So that's something you have to learn as a Skrull, or you don't?
No, you're born with the ability to it, and he was born without the ability to shapeshift.
Why?
It was a character. They wanted to develop this character. Why they decided to use the name in Captain Marvel, I don't know.
It's very convenient that Talos has the same voice as the character that he portrayed Nick Fury's boss, Ben Mendelsohn.
Right.
Yeah. I liked his voice so much I used it.
And nobody caught it.
Yeah, I know.
One of the most famous storylines, because they're constantly at war with the Cree Empire, is the Kree Skrull War. And
Which
so
they talk about, right?
Yeah, so it takes place that the official war, the storyline, the Kree Skrull War, takes place in Avengers 89 through 97. It served in a lot of ways as a metaphor for political issues at the time and prior to it, which, including, the Arab-Israel War, the House Un-American Activities Committee. One add to the list of a dozen things we said to note about comics is a lot of writers and a lot of books were blacklisted in the 50s. So the House Un-American Activities Committee, the Joseph McCarthyism, everybody's a communist, the hunt for people who are supporters is very ingrained in a lot of these writers because they lost friends to it. They lost colleagues to it. And so I think when given an opportunity to tell a story about it, they really take that to heart. And so this is probably one of the most famous Avengers stories because it hits on these political themes, but in a way that ties into the Avengers. I don't want to give too much away because it is one of our recommended reading, one of the ones that we put in there, but a lot of the Skrulls actually end up shape-shifting into Avengers and impersonating the Avengers and disbanding the team so that they can't stop this coming fight to them.
Okay.
This is actually the beginning of the romance for Wanda and Vision. If you like, WandaVision, check the story out. I don't want to go into it too much, but this is the Skrulls have come to Earth. They've started to impersonate the Avengers. It's really building on this really political fear and feeling that a lot of people had.
Not that I want to go down this road because I think we should move on to the next segment, but when a Skrull imitates an Avenger, they imitate their powers too.
Yes.
So what are these guys? How is that possible?
I don't know, because so that becomes the whole plot line of Secret Invasion. So Secret Invasion we touched on, and they are going to make the show. We talk about it in our bonus episode. And we didn't think it was ever going to be possible that they'd make a Secret Invasion show, and then they did. In it, we realized that a lot of characters who we've been following for years and years were Skrulls.
That's ridiculous.
And they had been members of the Avengers for years.
So I'm going to ask this question. Did a Skrull ever impersonate Thor?
Yeah, in this one, he did.
That's ridiculous. How is that possible if Thor is the only person that can hold the hammer and you imitate him?
I don't know if I have to look at it again. I don't remember if you see him holding the hammer.
That's ridiculous. I'm not a fan of that, but we should move on.
All right.
So you already teased that a lot of your issues with this movie is its place in the MCU.
Yes.
Why not hit me with your biggest issue?
All right. First of all, this is a 2-hour movie to just explain how the Tesseract ended up in S.H.I.E.L.D. hands.
Okay.
Second, it completely upends the whole, S.H.I.E.L.D. plot in Iron Man when Coulson is like, yeah, we're really working on an acronym or something to shorten. Like Coulson seems like a new agent to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Or the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement Logistics Division, because they don't call it S.H.I.E.L.D. until the end.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to know about S.H.I.E.L.D. in this, right away.
This is 95.
This is 95. Iron Man takes place in 2008.
So that's 13 years later.
13 years, and he's a buffoon in Iron Man. And he's been working with Nick Fury since.
We got some problems here. Yep. Okay.
This is probably the biggest. Well, this is, I don't know. The next two are probably the biggest ones. One is, I trust you not to eat me. And this is, what Nick Fury says to the Flurkin. And in Captain America Winter Soldier, he explains that he got the eye. His eye was scarred over the last time he trusted somebody. Come on. Come on. This is the dumbest thing ever. Your throwaway line to tie something in when it doesn't need to be tied in.
This is like the gold dice in Solo.
Yes.
Yeah.
You put the gold dice in Solo so that you could see the gold dice in
because of the
Force Awakens or Last Jedi or something.
The gold dice were in the Millennium Falcon during the original trilogy. So they added that was part of that. It was like some just kind of decoration.
And then you make it even more of a point.
But yeah, and you make that gold dice symbolic, even though it's just a decoration in the Millennium Falcon back in the original series. But I will tell you this, those original dice in the original trilogy for Star Wars were in there because the production designer saw the dice in the car window of Harrison Ford's car in American Graffiti. And that's why he did it. But he's wrong because the dice aren't in Harrison Ford's car in American Graffiti. They're actually in Ron Howard's car in American Graffiti. Harrison Ford's car has a skull hanging from the rearview mirror. So it's all a lie. It's all a lie, people. I hear you.
You build
Back
a
to
movie.
the cat.
You build a movie to add this stupid little connection in.
I didn't realize it was. I really throughout these entire movies, because this is the 23rd film in the MCU.
22nd?
No, 23rd, because Endgame's 24, right?
No, this is the 21st, because Endgame is 22nd and Spider-Man is 23rd.
No. 6, 18.
Yep.
20. You're right. 21st.
21st.
Okay. I never really had any inclination or any desire to find out how he lost his eye.
Some things you don't need to know.
But was that a big thing where people wanted to know that?
He referenced it like, I don't think you needed to see it. Maybe.
Do you think that when they were writing this movie that came up, hey, listen, he's going to have both eyes, but do you want us to explain how he loses this eye?
Absolutely, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and I kind of agree with you, but I never really wanted to know.
I didn't want to know
what I mean? So I didn't really care. It's a little irresponsible that he never gets it checked out. Everyone's like, that looks like crap. I'm fine. You can't see out of your left eye. You're not going to go to the doctor ever.
You get scratched by an alien cat and you're not going to get that checked out? Come on.
And then he keeps the cat.
Right. Then he keeps the cat, who we never see again.
Do you think you kill the Flurgan after he coughs up the Tesseract on his desk?
He probably did.
Do you think somebody walked in to put something on his desk and was like, what the hell is that? That's new paperweight. That's sweet.
Yeah. And how does he explain that he got it back? It just showed up. It just showed up in my office.
I can't remember where the Tesseract goes. Where does it go after this?
It goes into a shield warehouse until they get until Thor.
And then they're working on it.
And then they get Selvig to work on it. And then Avengers happens and Loki comes out of the portal and steals the Tesseract and we begin the whole journey. And then the second most frustrating thing is the Avengers Initiative.
What was it called originally?
The Protectors Initiative or something, which sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like, but.
You don't like the fact that he gets the name off of her call sign?
No.
Why?
Well, first of all, her call sign in the comics is Cheeseburger.
I saw that.
Because
the Cheeseburger Initiative.
Cheeseburger Initiative. And she gets it because she pukes up a cheeseburger during training.
Excellent.
Which, since we're on that subject, best movie call sign. Who you got?
Maverick.
Oh, I was going to go Merlin.
No, Maverick. Are you kidding me? You're not going Top Gun Maverick? You're going Merlin from Top Gun?
I'm going Merlin from Top Gun.
Merlin's a bitch in Top Gun. Are you kidding me?
Merlin or Viper.
Viper's okay. No, Maverick. Come on,
fine.
Pat.
Right.
Everyone and their mother's going Maverick. Listen, I cannot wait for Top Gun Maverick.
Which, do you think Goose? Well, I know
Goose is a terrible name.
Goose is the cat's name. Is it the cat?
Oh, they did that on purpose.
The cat in the comics is Goose.
That's why they. Yeah, that's what I. But I heard that the Goose is for Top Gun.
For Top Gun.
Yeah, for the 90s. Yeah, no. Merlin.
I think so.
Wow.
Merlin or Viper?
I'll tell you right now.
Would you want me Wolfman? Hollywood?
Hollywood's okay, but
Hollywood's not bad.
But Maverick. Here's the thing. You need to put that on Instagram during this week. the best call sign.
The best call sign.
You could say you need to tell people you think it's Merlin.
I say Merlin.
No way.
Pull this as the quote.
What's that?
Pull this as the quote.
Okay. Merlin. Maverick, of course. Merlin.
Yeah, I just think, I don't know. That frustrates me is they're trying so hard to tie her into the Avengers, which I think, we were surprised by the money it made. I'm
not surprised. I think it's a positive. It's a female positive movie. That's
it is a
fine.
female positive
I'm
movie.
okay with all that.
I think there was a little.
Obviously, I don't know why I'm qualifying that. Yes, it's completely fine.
I think there was a lack of response though by a lot of fans because they were so worried that she was going to come in and be this Deus Ex Machina in Endgame because of how Infinity War ends. And for me, Infinity War ended with that setup, and then I go watch this, and I'm just like, okay. And then she destroys a spaceship or destroys the bombs that are coming down. And just like, is she just going to be the one that comes in and saves the day in Endgame when she's not really part of the story?
But you like that moment in Endgame because
I don't like that moment.
Oh, you don't like that Endgame?
No,
you don't like Endgame, right?
No, I like Endgame, but I liked Infinity War better.
Right. I don't know. I mean, and we're going to talk about it again in Endgame, but the whole all female reshoot they did, we talk about it when it's forced in there and it feels forced in there, it's not genuine. I don't find that in this movie with her getting up, when they keep going back to her.
No, I joked about the tub
right.
thumping.
There are different moments in time when she falls back down and gets back up. That's a great message, and it's really done well within the movie. It's organic, so you're just like, yes.
In the movie, it's great,
right? Yeah,
I think watching it this time around, I liked it better because I wasn't so worried about her role in Endgame because I know it gets reduced because I want to follow the characters I've just followed for 20 movies, not have some new character from, this one movie just pop in and save the day.
Right.
I wanted to see Iron Man and Captain America and Black Widow and Hulk and Thor and Hawkeye save the day because those are the guys that are left over. They've been with us since the beginning. I didn't want this one character. And so when I watched it, 2 months before Endgame came out, that's what I was worried about is that she was going to come in and just steal the show. And because of how overpowered they make her in this movie.
Right.
But watching it this second, because this is the second time I watched it, it's much better knowing that they just reduce her role.
Yeah. The MCU, as we know it now, they have things that they've created in terms of they've upped the ante on all these characters. Like we talk about it with Spider-Man. Spider-Man is now linked with Iron Man, but Spider-Man is also now linked in terms of off-world. He's not just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man anymore. He will never be unless they have some kind of rewrite. But and we've talked about that before. But they've also all these new characters that you bring on, they have to be better than the original, the other characters. Like Iron Man's great, but you got to have somebody who's better than Iron Man. Also, you have to start introducing new people, maybe, yes, younger, but new people for new audiences. Because if you want this to go to 40, 50, 60 movies, which I'm sure is the plan,
absolutely,
you need to have new blood in the movies. So it's a dance you're doing.
Mhm.
It's definitely, and yes, it's hindsight's 2020 when we're sitting here criticizing how S.H.I.E.L.D. was, first developed 13 years prior to Iron Man. But, you just have to just go. You just have to kind of accept it and say, not just you, but producers are going to be like, yes, listen, we're doing this as we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just the nature of the product.
And I want to comment on there because the S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, that was a problem I had with Ant-Man,
Right.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, because we know that they're working for S.H.I.E.L.D. Why they didn't make it the strategic, the SSR, which is what it was established in Captain America and through Agent Carter. Why not just keep it SSR until like 2007?
I don't know.
Like that seemed like an easy solution. We've been watching these movies. We know what the SSR is. We know what it becomes. Why not just make it become SSR in 2007, right before Iron Man hits? So when Phil Coulson's like, yeah, we're still working on shortening it. But when you establish him in this movie, he's part of the SSR. He knows the whole thing. He's just fumbling around trying to make it sound better in Iron Man. Instead, now it just seems weird.
They can adjust the whole Coulson talk with Iron Man by just making him.
Unless he's a Skrull.
Oh,
is how
true. He's making him a Skrull, or he's purposely being obtuse. He's not trying to reveal anything.
Yeah.
They can just say that, and that's fine. That's a reasonable explanation because sometimes I view S.H.I.E.L.D. as the CIA, NSA. They're not going to really tell you the full story
That's
because
true.
you're not involved, but they can do that. Do you think this movie, and I don't really want to go too deep into this part, but I think we're both pretty decent human beings
I think so.
and progressive gentlemen. Do you think this movie suffers from toxic fandom in terms of men?
Yes.
Yeah. It's so one note when I have to listen to people talking about like that and they complain about the movie and I'm just like, you just shut up.
Yeah.
It's like, you're so stupid.
And I think, my problem, and I've hopefully
You
made
have
this
story
clear.
problems. Yeah.
My problem with the film isn't so much, it's the way that they portray Carol in the movie initially, because it's similar to Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther, but I think Chadwick has more meat to work with. He's the straight man versus everybody else is a lot more interesting.
Right.
Same thing happens in this movie is despite that the movie is about Carol figuring out who she is, there's a lot more interesting characters and she's just not given a lot to work with.
I think this movie probably would have been better, not to cut you off, was that the fact that she's trying to solve who she is, but she really needs to fight Supreme Intelligence, not yearned. I know she breaks away from that Supreme Intelligence, but you think the Supreme Intelligence is going to fight back, and she doesn't. She never goes after her.
You almost need to reverse this. Well, take it so when Carol is captive and she's meeting, Annette Bening is Supreme Intelligence, and that's, when she beats the Supreme Intelligence and she frees herself. You almost need that scene. Then you have the scene against Yanrog down on Earth where they're fighting and she just blasts them away. And then go back and like fully obliterate the Supreme Intelligence.
She needs to go. Yeah, she needs to still face them.
Yes.
Or her or it.
Like you escaped. Okay, great. You take care of Yanrog and the goons. Go back.
See, that's why Ronan's there.
Yeah.
To do that, to have that moment where you can't. Because that's another 20, 30 minutes you're adding to the movie.
Yeah.
But I agree. So I think one of the things with this movie is it's trying to tell the story of Carol Danvers on Earth, but she's really not from Earth anymore.
Right.
She's never been, it's been 6 years, but she still has 6 years of experience off world where she needs to basically confront her captor.
Yeah.
Like Captain Marvel 2. I don't know what it's about.
I don't know what it's about either.
But I mean, is the Supreme Intelligence going to be involved? Is Ronan going to be, one of my questions to you was, is Ronan going to be the bad guy, the villain now? And
probably not,
Captain
because
Marvels?
what I've heard of it, I don't know what happens in it, but Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, is supposed to be in it. So that series on Disney Plus isn't supposed to take place until 2023. Ronan got beat in Guardians of the Galaxy, which was 2012.
Right.
So I don't know. And I think, again, I like the fight scenes in this movie are good. The message is important. Having 5 writers screwed this up.
Of course,
that's where, and then trying to tie this into the greater MCU. And that's really been our issue for a lot of movies is how it ties in. The less connection it has, usually the better movie it is.
Mm-hmm.
They were using her to build the future of the MCU as it's already been built. They wanted, like, the foundation of the MCU was built with Iron Man, Captain America, the first Avenger, and Thor in Avengers. And then they went back in time and put, a framework under the foundation with this movie. So I don't really mind. I think Carol Danvers doesn't get enough to do. I think Brie Larson doesn't get enough to do as Carol Danvers, despite the fact, there's a lot of fights, but emotional scenes are lacking. Really formative character moments are lacking, but it really comes down to they just throw stuff in here just to throw it in there. And that to me is the problem with this movie.
Well, a lot of Marvel characters, superheroes, their weaknesses are their personalities or their personal connections or their ego or whatever. That's their weaknesses, not like DC where you have Superman whose weakness is kryptonite, or you have Green Lantern's weakness is the color yellow. Like, the reason why I'm bringing that up is you have created a Captain Marvel in the MCU who is basically Superman. She is Superman. What's her weakness? And if you're going to tell me if Marvel's going to go in Captain Marvel 2 and make her weakness be something emotional or something like that, I don't know if that is good enough. I think you need to give her a weakness like Superman, where she loses her powers and needs to learn how to be a hero without them. Because that's what you're going to need to do, because you've created.
So the same message from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If you're no one without the suit,
right,
then you're no one. So,
but that message in Spider-Man is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's tough. Like I said, this goes to what they've already created. So it's really difficult. And I know nobody wants to see origin stories again. They've already seen these before. I get it. But there's got to be a better way to do it than what you're doing, because right now it's just, and honestly, it doesn't really matter, because you could put anything up and people are going to go watch it. I mean, I know that everyone loves WandaVision, and I have not seen it yet. And I know you have not seen it yet when we're recording this, but would anybody ever admit it wouldn't be bad? Like, is anybody ever going to admit, is there going to be a universally panning of a Marvel entity at some point?
Not anymore.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
It's not going to be a Wonder Woman 84 moment where it comes out.
There's still people that won't admit that it's not good. See, that's the thing. Yeah. See, here's the thing. Toxic fandom goes both ways.
Yes.
It goes obviously where you hate on everything, but obviously when you love on everything, you can't admit something is flawed. Like, people are like, did you like Wonder Woman, the first one? And I'm like, it's okay. I like some moments. And they get mad. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. You don't have to get, if you love it, you love it.
Like a lot of these movies, the ending isn't great.
Right.
It doesn't wrap up very well.
Right.
And I think that's what we're trying to say here is we like these movies. We've just done a whole podcast on 90% of the movies in the Marvel universe. We like them. We enjoy them. We put them on. We have fun with them.
But there are levels of how much we like.
Yes. Yeah. And we can admit that they have flaws. Like, there are some really great moments in this movie. There are some really not great moments in this movie. And that goes for every movie, just about every movie.
I feel like
in the
we're
MCU.
doing a wrap up for the entire series, but for the entire podcast.
Almost.
But I will say this, and I'll probably bring this up towards the end of Far From Home when we wrap everything up. Being honest about what we feel about these movies is obviously how people should be, but it also should tell you that when we say to you, Black Panther, we really like Black Panther, that should tell you how much we really like Black Panther. Like, because we're not just blowing smoke.
Yeah.
So when we like something in a movie, it's disingenuous if we love everything about everything. Like, nothing's perfect.
Right.
Nothing's perfect. And so if we sit here and just blow smoke about a movie, and then how are you ever going to know when we really like something? How are you? And listen, tastes change. I've watched movies when I was a child, and I watched them later on. I'm just like, whoa, why did I like that movie? And it's, young Mike likes this movie, but old Mike doesn't. Like, stuff like that. Like,
it's when he becomes his father.
We are allowed to have taste that change. We're allowed to, it's all subjective. I don't know why I'm going down this road.
No, I'm just going to say, I'll end with this is just, at the end of every basically phase or, half a phase, whatever, we wrap up our movies. And so we're actually recording this the day after we released our rankings for phase 3, part 1. There was a lot of differences in the comics. We're not taking away if you like these movies, if you really like one movie over another, if you really love Captain Marvel. Good. Awesome. Love Captain Marvel. Love the movie.
Yeah.
We're just, this is us watching it. We enjoyed it. There were some moments that really drove me nuts, as I hopefully articulated. But, we're not trying to take away your enjoyment from it. We're just thinking about it a different way and also providing some comic book background on these.
Which we'll get to, but before we do that, I wanted to ask Pat one thing. Do you know what Pegasus stands for?
I don't.
I do.
Tell me.
Potential Energy Group, alternate sources, United States.
Ha. somebody in a room came up with an acronym.
I'm reading it going, why? Like the way it's written out, it's like there's a slash between potential energy group and alternate sources. So you couldn't even just say potential energy group of alternate sources for the United States. You had to just, yeah. Okay. So anyways, that's it. We hope you liked it. We hope, we hope you enjoyed us talking about Captain Marvel. Next week, we will return with the movie that's going to end it all.
Sort of.
Well, until the next one, the wrap-up movie. So, like much like they do in TV shows now, they usually have the penultimate episode is where everything wraps up, because the final episode is where you kind of wrap up the wrap-up, which I kind of appreciate because you're like, all right. So, Avengers Endgame next week. Get ready. We've got a lot to talk about. Pat don't like it. I haven't seen it.
I didn't say I don't like it.
I'm just joking. I'm joking. I haven't seen it since the theater, which I kind of like. I hadn't seen this since the theater, so it was nice revisiting. It's 3 hours long, so I'm not looking forward to that. But hey, and I know I watched on Disney Plus, and I'm like 303. I'm like, oh no. But that's next week, Avengers Endgame. I will talk to you next week. Pat's gonna let you have some recommended reading for Captain Marvel. Thanks a lot, everyone. As always, at the end of each episode, we like to send you home with some recommended reading that follows up on some of the characters and plots presented in this week's film. Our recommended reading section is sponsored by Infinite Heroes, comics, cards, and collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut. If you're in the Connecticut or New England area, it's a great location to pick up comics from Marvel, as well as DC, Image, and more. They also have a large collection of trading cards, toys, and collectibles. Owner Paul Santos has worked in comics for years, most recently as an editor at DC Comics. Ask him for a recommendation and tell him we sent you.
All right, thank you for listening. Let's dive into some recommended reading for Captain Marvel. First up, go higher, further, faster, and Kelly Sue DeConnick's take on Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel, Earth's Mightiest Hero. While technically this is Kelly Sue's second run on the character, it serves as a great jumping on point for new readers. Number 2, Margaret Stoll explores Carol's backstory. She goes from Boston suburb to leader of the Avengers in the life of Captain Marvel. And finally, let's get some background on the shape-shifting aliens. Roy Thomas and Sal Buscema's Cree Skrull epic spread through 10 issues of the main Avengers series. The war comes to Earth and sees the Skrulls impersonate members of the Avengers. Oh, and for fans of WandaVision, this has some great moments of Scarlet Witch and Vision getting together. Thanks for listening. Remember to please rate, review, and subscribe if you liked it. And please tell your friends. We thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.